why the NBA is losing viewers, and why they will never come back. These past NBA playoffs experienced a humongous drop in ratings. The NBA Finals suffered a drop in viewership between 40 to 50% each game. The NBA appears to be losing viewers. Are they losing viewers for good, or is this temporary? Is this something that the NBA can come back from? Or is this deficit in viewership going to be too big a mountain to climb back up? It's interesting that in a year where basketball and other sports were ripped away from us, that when we finally did get them back, ratings dropped. Interesting as it may be, it's not necessarily a mystery. The NBA has had a very unique start to the season and has had massive changes. Among other things, some of these changes were large factors to the drop in ratings. The restart, of course, didn't invite every team back, just teams that were playoff bound and playoff possibles. And the Washington Wizards, who had no chance to make the playoffs, but apparently needed to round out the number of teams there were. A lot of the Washington crew looked happy enough to just play a few more games of basketball. Good for them. But more than half of the teams in the NBA came to the restart, so the lack of several teams didn't necessarily harm the ratings all that much. Fans of the game were happy to have the sport back, some fans anyway. What specific factors of the restart drove fans away? The social justice conundrum. To preach Black Lives Matter is not a conundrum for the players and coaches, but for the league to support the players' beliefs, it can be a conundrum for them. The league knows that these social justice issues that have been brought to light in recent months can prove to be divisive. For a humongous business such as the NBA, taking one side or another can alienate a significant fan base. That is just what happened. The NBA allowed players to speak openly about social justice issues, giving them an enormous platform. Players could have Black Lives Matter, among other phrases, in the backs of their jerseys. Kneeling during the national anthem was allowed and quite prevalent. And all of this left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. All of this caused a lot of people to flip the channel to something else. A lot of people never even turned to that channel in the first place. It's been a real hot button issue, and there are plenty of fans who don't want to hear any side of the issue when watching sports. Sports offer them an escape, and they don't want politics or social justice bleeding over into it. The NBA has been pushing these issues hard. Fans that feel they need to avert their eyes have found other things to watch on TV. Some fans didn't care much for the whole social justice push from the NBA. Midway through the first round of the playoffs, there was another halting to the NBA season for social justice issues. Games did start back up a few days afterwards, but this second shutdown enraged many fans that were still watching. The repetitive starting and stopping was too much for some to deal with, and they gave up on the NFL. Ratings continued to drop, and if all this wasn't enough from this strange NBA experiment, the restart showcased other issues. Where are the fans? Obviously, fans were not able to be in attendance at the games. Now, if fans couldn't attend a game, that wouldn't deter them from watching it at home. In the usual years of the NBA, that becomes the second option if you're unable to watch in person. Turn on the TV. But with a lack of fans in the stands, many people were turned off from watching. The NBA did all it could, pumping in crowd noise, hiring DJs to play music, and try to keep the feeling in the arena similar to the old days. But plenty of people complained that it just wasn't enough. There was an obvious difference. The NBA introduced virtual fans, in which people can watch from home and live stream themselves into a virtual seat. It provided some sense of fans sitting around watching and cheering in a non-3D kind of way. Similarly, attendees at basketball arenas bring the game to life. The atmosphere is electric. Visiting teams have trouble playing the game over the crowd noise. Players at home feed off the crowd noise and drain jump shots to make everyone go ballistic. Boston fans couldn't watch their team playing in front of a sea of green shirts and see the sparkling bead necklaces and Irish hats surrounding the court. Their beloved mascot rallying up the crowd and helping to put everyone in a frenzy. This atmosphere, it wasn't quite the same, and a lot of people weren't getting on board. Now, the restart wasn't necessarily all bad. It was a new experience, and with that, the NBA could have tried some new things out. However, they did not capitalize. Missed opportunity. Many times, people complain about the playoff setup in the NBA. The 8 best in the West and 8 best in the East isn't necessarily the best way to go about it if you ask around. If there are going to be 16 teams in the playoffs, why not just have it be the 16 best overall? Why not just rank teams 1 to 16 and then have them face off in the playoffs like that? When one conference gets stacked with more quality teams, for one, you wouldn't leave out good teams and let subpar teams into the playoffs if you just went with the 16 best. Secondly, you have a much better chance that the absolute 2 best teams in the league face off against each other in the finals. And that is what you want. The high drama, the high stakes, the top 2 juggernauts squaring off at the least possible stage. And the NBA could have tried this out in an unprecedented year. Why not? But they kept the same old formula, and many fans were disappointed. The Orlando Magic, who finished the season with 33 wins, made it into the playoffs as the Eastern Conference 8th seed. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, 2 teams that just missed the playoffs had more wins than the Magic. Yes, the Memphis Grizzlies and the Phoenix Suns both had 34 wins. Ask residents of Tennessee and Arizona. Either of those teams would have been better suited for the playoffs over Orlando. It's a fair point that's hard to argue. The playoffs are a reward for the best teams. The very best teams should be the ones moving on after the end of the regular season, without placing geographical bias on them. This could have been an experimental year to try out a new playoff format, but the NBA stuck with the old reliable. Viewers felt with a change in the situation, everything being in a bubble, why wouldn't the NBA be more flexible in their approach to the playoffs? How about a little variety? How about shaking things up a little bit? Which brings us to the next point. Tired of the same old faces? Variety is the spice of life. Continuing to experience the same old thing day in, day out, year after year, it can be a slow and soul-crushing experience. As humans, we need to see and try new things, and we want our TV programming to evolve in front of our eyes. The complaints about the NBA Finals have been swelling over the past few years. It's always the same teams. It's always the same players. We all know there are different teams and players making it to the finals, but just how different is it each year? How much do the finals champions really vary from year to year? Well, now that the Lakers have won their 17th championship, which ties the Boston Celtics for the most wins by a single franchise, one can see immediately that 34 championship wins are accounted for by just 2 teams. No other teams are even close to Boston or Los Angeles. However, the next closest are the Warriors and the Bulls with 6 each. The Spurs have 5, 3 titles each for the Sixers, the Pistons, and the Heat. And the Knicks and the Rockets are the only other ball clubs with multiple championships at 2 apiece. 9 different franchises have only one championship, and some of them were so long ago that the franchise has since moved to a different state, changed the team name, or both. There are 11 franchises in the NBA that have never won a championship. Now, it's obvious that the majority of fans in Boston, LA, Chicago, and Northern California are likely elated with all the success they've seen. But what about the rest of the country? Are they sick of seeing the same teams? The same faces? Still don't think it's all that top-heavy in the NBA? Let's try to break it down further. The 5 teams with the most championships account for 51 total championships. The other 25 teams, just 22. That means the top 5 teams have more than twice as many titles as the rest of the league. The top 8 teams account for 60 titles. The other 22 teams, 13 titles. The top 8 teams have more than 4 times as many championships as the rest of the league. LeBron James has been to 9 of the last 10 finals series. He's won 4 of them. He has more championships than 5/6 of franchises in the entire league, and at least 4 times as many as 2/3 of the league. People are tired of seeing his face in the finals year after year after year. They finally had a LeBron-less finals last year, though it was the 5th straight year with a Golden State Warriors, only to get LeBron showing up in the finals again this year. People want variety, and they just aren't getting it with the NBA. So, are these issues with NBA viewership able to be fixed or adjusted? Is the NBA going to be able to pull viewers back in? The bubble restart is over with. With some luck, the league will be able to return next season to more of a sense of normalcy. Games in teams' usual stadiums, actual physical fans that aren't being live broadcasted from their living rooms. But can they make it so that the league is less dominated by a handful of teams? Appease more fans from more areas in the country? And will they be able to win back fans that were upset about the league's involvement in certain issues throughout the country? Maybe with election season ready to pass, certain issues will fall out of the spotlight. Perhaps the NBA won't have as much reason to take a side on hot-button issues. These things could restore some viewership. Has too much harm already been done? Can the NBA captivate a nation once again? Or has it already done irreparable damage? Final thoughts. After unusually low-rated playoffs to cap off an unusual season, the NBA will be taking a hard look at their organization. Do changes need to be made? Are changes inevitable? Can they go on if their ratings continue to be like this? Thanks for watching this UpNext Sports video. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Can you think of any other reasons the NBA's ratings dropped? Comment and let us know. And be sure to join us for the next video.